Hey guys, it's Katie Jane from Hoover Public Library, and I love to talk about books, as you know. And this month I'm especially loving to talk about Black history books, but now we're going to focus a little more on books that maybe are not for the youngest kids, but you're mature. You're a solid reader. I think you can handle these. So we're going to talk first about some that are in a picture book format, but definitely not for little kids. And then I'm going to tell you about all the new novel-length nonfiction that you can read this Black History Month. Let's get started with this stack. So the first one has a tie to the state of Alabama. Because of You, John Lewis, the true story of a remarkable friendship. John Lewis was a civil rights activist, especially well known for his work in Selma, Alabama. He later served with dignity in the United States Congress. He dedicated his very long life to civil rights. But this is not a book just about his life. It's about a young boy who was inspired by his life, who reached out to meet John Lewis. And once they met, they struck up a friendship. And this is all about how that friendship changed both of these men, the young and the old. Because of You, John Lewis. Now, this next book is about a woman from a neighboring state, the state of Georgia. You may have heard of her. She's in the news quite a bit. Her name is Stacey Abrams, and this is one of the new books about her called Stacey Abrams and the Fight to Vote. Her focus is to make sure that everyone who is eligible to vote has a chance to let their voice be heard. Sometimes there are obstacles in the way of registering to vote or even physically getting to the polling place, and Stacey Abrams is fighting to make sure that everyone has equal access. This is just one of several great biographies that has come out about her in the last year. I hope you will read it or one of the others. This next one is from a lady who she used the power of her words, like she seriously did. Not spoken words, though she did speak out. She used the power of her typewriter. This is Ida B. Wells' Voice of Truth. It's about educator, feminist, and anti-lynching civil rights leader Ida B. Wells. So lynching is a practice that happened way too often in our country's past, where someone was executed by hanging for a perceived crime without going to court, without having a trial. It was justice carried out by the general public, and it often was targeting Black Americans. And Ida B. Wells spoke out about it, and she wrote about it, and she published her words. And there was a lot of danger to her life because of this, but she never backed down. She always wanted to be the voice of truth. This next biography is also about a lady who was very good with words. This is called Maya's Song, and it is all about Maya Angelou, a renowned poet and author. And this book is written in verse to capture her life in the medium she was best known for. It is also beautifully illustrated by Brian Collier. Glorious Words by Renee Watson. And this last book in my stack is actually my favorite book that came out in 2022. I've been talking about it ever since I discovered it, and it just won several major awards at the Youth Media Awards sponsored by the American Library Association. Choosing Brave: How Mamie Till Mobley and Emmett Till Sparked the Civil Rights Movement. Mamie Till Mobley was a woman who had a son named Emmett. And when Emmett was a teenager and visiting family in Mississippi, he was killed by a group of men. When his body was found, Mamie could have quietly buried him there. Instead, she had him sent home, which cost as much as she made in her whole year. And then she had a funeral where everyone could come and see what people had done to her baby. That was hard, but Mamie decided she needed to do what was hard to make sure that things like this did not continue to happen in our country. She chose to be brave. Maybe she will inspire you when you read Choosing Brave. All right, I told you we were going to switch to a little longer books. So these next two are some standalone books that are so interesting, and they're about people I bet you have never heard of before. Because even me, with all of my reading, was not aware of their stories. The first one is called Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round. My Story of the Making of Martin Luther King Day. This is by Kathleen J. Kirkwood, a woman who spent her youth as an activist, not just in all the ways that we've read about during the Civil Rights Movement, but she also advocated to have a holiday commemorating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this is the story of her work and its success. And guys, this is something crazy I learned from this book, and it's also featured on my shirt. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a holiday in his honor, it was started in 1983. I'd already been alive 3 years before that happened. It's a very recent holiday. Totally blew my mind that it took so long from his death to when he was commemorated with the holiday. Learn all about it in Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round. And then this other one is called Unlawful Orders. And this is about Dr. James B. Williams, and he's a Tuskegee Airman. You know where Tuskegee is, right? That's right, Alabama, another Alabama tie. How amazing. So this is about a man who he served with honor. He was doing exactly what he needed to do for his country, but he was facing racism within the service, and he stood up for himself. And in fact, he led a movement which led to the desegregation of the United States Armed Forces. What? And you've never even heard of him, have you? I know, totally blows your mind. Find out exactly what he did in Unlawful Orders. These next two books are from a series I completely love. I'm only talking about the two that have come out within the last year, but there are so many more if these strike an interest with you. This series is called She Persisted, and it was inspired by a picture book originally written by Chelsea Clinton. However, it has taken on a life of its own, and each of these novel-length biographies is written by a famous children's author. So the two newest ones featuring African Americans are Coretta Scott King, which is written by Kelly Starling Lyons, which is of course all about Dr. King's wife and all the work that she did also in her own name, and Marian Anderson by Katherine Russell Brown, a woman who used her powerful singing voice to show a highlight of how America was not what they've always claimed to be. She was known as the voice of the nation. Find out why when you read Marian Anderson, one of two amazing new books in the She Persisted series. All right, we're coming to the end, and we are focusing on a series that I know every person watching this has heard of. It is known as the Who HQ, or as I like to call it, the big-headed biographies. You know the ones. They've got people on the front with tiny little bodies and big old heads. And these are just some of the newest ones featuring Black Americans. So a big stack of them are in the Who Is portion of that series. So we have people like Who Is Colin Kaepernick? Who is Shaquille O'Neal? Who is Stacey Abrams? I mentioned her in another book talk earlier. Who is Zendaya? So you see, that's quite a range of people. Entertainers, sports folks, politicians, and guys, that's just the newest ones. If you look in the Who HQ, Who Is, Who Was, you're gonna find even more. And we've made it very easy now at Hoover Library because we have a whole Who HQ section. Stop and ask me about it the next time you're in the Kids Zone. But you may not know about this, even though you know about Who HQ. Did you know there are now graphic novels? They've taken some of their most popular of this kind of book, and they've turned them into graphic novels. So there are 3 new ones that feature African Americans. Who was the greatest? Muhammad Ali, that's right. So boxer, but also he was a pacifist. I know, blows the mind, right? We have who sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, which of course, Rosa Parks, everyone knows about her, but this will be a different way to explore her story. And then, who is the man in the air? Michael Jordan! And guys, it's just the beginning. I wonder how many of these they'll put out. There's like hundreds of the originals. Maybe they'll all be transformed into amazing graphic novels. Guys, these are just some of the amazing books you can find at Hoover Public Library. During the month of February 2023, we have a special display along our starred hallway, so you'll find all of these and many, many more. And if you need even more, you know where to come. Miss Katie Jane, Hoover Public Library. Thanks for listening, guys. Happy reading.